Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I'm Mark Schumacher, the CEO of the Home Furnishings Association, and this is one of our weekly webinars, which we absolutely love putting together because they're based on what we hear from you as members, what you want to learn about, things you want to know about. And we know that so many of you, particularly with this very up and down year of 2022 so far, are looking for creative ways to build your customer base. And that's why we've got this panel together today, and that's what we're going to talk about. I do want to do a little bit of house cleaning here. First of all, you'll notice a box to the right of your screen. It has a little chat box in it. If you have some questions you'd like to just to type in there that we can try to answer during this program, we will. We have those questions that you put in when you signed up. And so we're happy to entertain as many of them as we possibly can. Also, these are a great resource. We will always, after the webinar is finished, we will post this along with all of the other webinars we've done at myhfa.org/webinar. You'll find the entire library there. I highly suggest you go there. There's probably not a subject that we won't have some insights on there. But let's get to it and make sure that we get the most out of this hour. I want to introduce our panel today. We have with us Joshua Miller. He is a general manager with Teppermans. If you're not familiar with Teppermans, they're a incredibly progressive, awesome retailer, about 12 stores up in Canada. They do a tremendous job. We also have Maggie Ellison with us. She's Director of Creative Experiences for Event Marketing Strategies. That's an experiential marketing agency. Maggie, we're happy to have you here as well. And we have Jamie Gaston with Esquire Advertising. We've had Esquire on a few of our programs, and it's an ad tech company with full service in-house marketing and advertising, the whole bit. So we've got some great firepower here today, not only two experts in the field specifically, but also a retail member that's put a lot of this to use. So everybody, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. This is a subject matter that has gotten a ton of questions that have come in already. So I'm going to work our way through that. But I always like to kind of just really start here with a little more of an open question. And Joshua, I'll start with you. So that title is very attractive, right? Creative ways to build your customer base. What would you say right now? Just give me two. What are the two things right now that you guys are doing that you're finding the most effective right now to try to build that customer base?
Well, one of the things that we don't shy away from is the grassroots idea of really making an event-like status with your customers in store. Our success has been on repeat business and ensuring that our customers receive such a unique shopping experience that they refer other customers to our business. So, as a quick, rapid run through, free ballots, popcorn, beverages, kid zones, live kitchens. We're currently doing a promotion this weekend where your savings comes out of a fortune cookie that you have to break open. And so what we want is our customers to experience something that they would never see in another retailer. And what that does is it ensures that they recommend other people to come back. Secondarily to that, we just launched a new initiative of interior design. So hiring certified decorators and offering full 3D renderings and drawings, brand new promotion that's brought in a lot of new business this year, and we're looking to rapidly expand that. So those are two quick initiatives that have really hopped off, but never losing focus on taking care of the customers that we do get, because they do drive our future business.
I love that. We'll get back to a couple of those things. You've already hit a couple of hot buttons there, one of them being the customer referral program. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Jamie, let me ask you the same thing. What are you seeing as in your world as far as maybe just give us just the quick first two that you think are those that are really working at the moment for retailers of all sizes?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love what Josh said, and I think focusing on brand and personality of your store is really, really huge right now, giving the consumer a reason to come and shop with you versus the other choices that they have in the market. And then second, we've been monitoring the consumer journey and consumer behavior through COVID over the last few years, and it's been really interesting to see the cross-shopping behavior prior to COVID being really high, and then obviously that dropping down super low. And we're finally kind of coming out of that where the demand is not so high and foot traffic is starting to decrease. So if retailers are not being proactive with their advertising and getting that brand and personality and message of why people should come shop with them, some of just that natural foot traffic that's been in such high demand and been out there coming out of COVID is starting to decrease. So being proactive in your marketing, of course, I'm biased being with my background in marketing, and I do think that that's really important right now.
Okay, we'll give you that bias. That was we kind of invited you because of that bias. So let's leave that at that. Maggie, what are you? What would you like to add to this as far as what you're seeing as a couple of those those trends right now that are working when it comes to building that base?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question, and I can only piggyback off of what Josh and Jamie just said. So I would say number one, I have the word create behind me, and that is really in creating experiences, right? And that could be in retail environments or outside of them. So what are you doing in and what are you doing out? So creating an experience that's authentic, unique. I also have a background in marketing, so I'm all for anything that boosts the brand. So I think create, think of that as a word, as an opportunity. What can we do to create that unique connection experience? And then also influencing. And Josh mentioned peer-to-peer, word of mouth. We buy from people we like. We listen to people we like. So just this morning, I'm listening to a podcast and they're talking to me about something and I like this person on this podcast. So I am more inclined to want to go to that website or go to that retail outlet because I'm being influenced by someone that I care about and who I believe cares about me, even though they don't know who I am. So those would be my 2 points. Think about creating experiences, and then also how can you tap into influencers, whether those are current customers or influencers in the digital space or whatever that might mean to you and your brand.
And Maggie, really quickly, just delineate this for me. You said talked about the retail environment inside and out. So when you're talking about out, is that the influencer piece, or define the inside and out for me?
Yeah, out in the community. Are you doing events? Josh mentioned doing internal events to I love that. Love the popcorn, you're creating an experience within your footprint that's an event experience, but how do you take your store out? Are you at community events? Can you set up a pocket of your furniture within a space where your customer is going? So think beyond just the fact that you have a brick and mortar, and maybe there's some people on this call that are online only, but how do you take that experience to where your customers are going without it being your physical store?
Do you think it's fair to say, and maybe the influencer piece is not within reach for the small to mid-sized retailer, but I'm not hearing anything that the three of you just said that doesn't work well for a retailer of any size, because our membership is very broad from that standpoint. We've got the biggest of the big and the smallest of the small. So when you talk about experiential and you talk about this brand piece of it, and Jamie, I'm going to start with you on this one. It seems to me that this is stuff that everybody can be doing, not just those that have the big budgets.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Esquire did a study throughout the last 6 months looking at the average visitors to a household, in a given community. And what we found was that in a month, the average person has 5 to 20 people over at their home, in that time period. So if you think about those conversations that are being had, right, as Maggie pointed out, we're all influencers. Your past customers are influencers, and they're having that conversation about that recent buying experience, whether you want them to or not. So the question is, what are you giving them to say, right?
Right.
Because they're not necessarily talking about, the product even, or the price point. They're talking about how they felt going into that store, how they were treated, the delivery process, how were the delivery men, were they clean, were they put the bed together in a timely manner. Like they're talking about their experience buying from your company. So the question is, what message what conversation are you allowing your past customers to have? Because when you have your best friend saying, hey, you got to go check out this place, they were so wonderful, I felt really special, I felt attentive when I was in there, like all of that, that's way more powerful than any Yelp review you could possibly get.
And you said something really interesting there, because you talked about how many people are kind of crossing paths, if you will. That's now part of the conversation again. A year and a half ago, we didn't have that.
Exactly.
Is it just Mark that we lost?
Oh, did you guys lose him too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
good. Okay, so it was not just me.
while Mark tries to figure that out, you know, Jamie, what you touched on, that whole idea of those customers talking about that experience and sharing it. You know, we roll that in. There's a book I read called The Undoing Project with Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. And one of the principles they talk about is peak end theory, and the importance of a customer's memories are shaped off of the most intense moments, whether that be joy or rage or anger, and the final moment. And really, retailers have to take that into consideration in multiple facets. One, the delivery experience, investing in higher quality drivers, training your drivers to really make that final experience, because it's not when you finish with them in store, but you have a set of drivers in the home that complement the purchase, that go in with the white gloves, do everything just pristine, and let that customer know how valued they are. That will rewrite any blunders, the stock delays and all that other stuff. The final product, that end moment, is so critical in reshaping their memory of their experience with you as a retailer. So it's a great point, and absolutely, customers are going to talk about where they got their stuff from when they're entertaining.
Absolutely. I just read something very similar that said, you know, the past can, or the present can affect the future, and the future can affect, well, now I can't remember it exactly, but the point was, if you're watching, you know, a movie and you enjoy the movie the whole time, and then at the very end there's a terrible ending, you're going to look back and say that was a horrible movie, right? And so that's kind of exactly to your point of like, okay, they could have had a wonderful experience shopping, and then the very last thing, maybe it's the delivery or whatever that last interaction is, if it's terrible, it's going to shape that entire experience. And so yeah, I'm 100% on board with exactly what you just said.
By the way, do you guys hear me now? Am I back?
Yes.
Wow. I don't know what happened, but I just, my system just said, I'm just going to take a little bit of a break here. But it sounds like you guys did a great job of continuing on, because you went right where I was hoping you would, which was to talk more about what Josh was talking about when it came to a customer referral program. And can we talk for a minute before we get off the influencer thing? Maggie, tell us a little bit about, you know, how does somebody go about that? I mean, it doesn't have to always be the, you know, you're not looking for a Kardashian. You know, who can be an effective influencer for my business? Is it somebody in-house? Is it somebody? I mean, give me an idea how anybody would even do that, because that's something that people always ask about. Yeah, influencers sound great, but how do I connect with them?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I think Jamie addressed this with, it's part of it's your customer base. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go and find and spend all this money, but also podcasts, right? Like, so, okay, think about traditional radio. We've all heard radio spots. We've grown up with the radio, and you have your local DJ who's on the radio, and they are all of a sudden, the DJ is actually doing the on-air commercial instead of like this recorded talent. So we saw that wave of influencing happening, and now you're seeing that in a similar format on podcasts. So do you listen to podcasts? Where is your customer going? That's where you need to start, is find where your customer is going and get to them. But what's your current base of customers? Do you have people who are sitting in their living room raving about their couch just because they want to? There's your influencer. They're coming in your store a couple times a year. Are they, I mean, what can you do to help get the word out through them very organically? Obviously, there's a lot of influencer marketing in the digital space. So looking local, seeing who has some of that natural reach, but it's got to be authentic. It can't be, come buy this product. It has to be real, it has to be raw, and it has to be truthful, because you want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when you hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, those are the people you're going to trust. The Yelp reviews were mentioned. Yeah, I'd much prefer to like text my friend or ask on Facebook. So that's at least a start. And I don't know if Jamie or Josh, if you have anything to add to that, but there's a lot of opportunity in the influence.
Well, one of the things I want to point out is that you said that's kind of key here is then you're saying it really can't be somebody who's like the store manager, because you're saying that's not going to be authentic because that person is going to be perceived as just talking about the store and selling it. Josh, is that fair? That it needs to be, again, customer or just somebody that's trusted, I guess, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. And, we've pre-COVID, we had done a couple of events with, we were fortunate enough to partner with some celebrities on HGTV and get them in. And we really focused on that truthful aspect. So they came into the store, we brought crowds into the store, we recorded it on the merchandise. We talked about, here's the value and here's the difference in value of each set of products, and had the customers interacting with the merchandise. But you can't over celebrate your successes. Customers kind of see that as, it can be condescending, it can become very fake. Just being very real, down roots. We often just say, we're a small family business up here in Canada, and we are here to take care of our customers, invest in our communities, and build back into you. And that resonates a long way with our customers here. I think one of my favorite lines is to pull, we're not a big box corporate store. We're here, we're in the community, and I care about you, Mr. Customer. And it goes a long way when you can come across authentic.
Well, it's interesting too, something to share with you guys. And I always get a great feel for the audience when we see the questions that come in. And it's interesting because there's a lot of here saying, yeah, but I'm in a more of a rural area. I'm in a small area. Or how do I compete with the big guys? The three of you are giving a roadmap here, because these are things that the small person can do, to the small business can do to differentiate. And in a way that, I think they've almost got a little bit of an inside, because they've also got more history and things of that sort. Because I love that let's be honest, you guys have 12 stores, so you're not like a little mom and pop. But when you approach it that way, Jamie, that's the experience that we're talking about here, right? Chime in on that, because I think it's a great example.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every market, every store is going to be a little different. The question is, how do you find your ideal customers, and then how do you get in front of them and be proactive in that message, right? It's like Maggie was saying, like, these conversations, they're happening. The influencer conversations of your past customers, they're happening every single day, and just giving them that story to tell. And if you're wondering kind of where to start in all this, well, the most genuine and authentic way to go about that, I would think, is to find a cause in your community that you actually believe in, and then let that be what you partner with. And then the influencers in that cause are going to happen as they see you pouring into that community, right? So it's not about just trying to go and cold call local celebrities to see who wants to promote your furniture or mattress. It's about pouring into the actual community, and then giving yourself a cause to believe in, and you can be authentic that way.
I want to give one quick real-time example. One of our retailers of the year this year, the small 50 or less employees, Room to Room in Tupelo, Mississippi. When we went to award them, that place was filled not just with customers, but with key people in the community, because of how much they connected that community. And I'm going to tell you something. I've seen that work. And I guess I would just say, anybody, if you're not really working to get connected and inviting people, leaders in your community, into your store, you're missing out. Josh, what were you going to say?
I was going to say too, that whole invest in something that really matters to you element. What's fascinating with today's technology is these groups of people that are all connected to a cause are better connected now than they ever were. For example, if you were to reach out and partner with the American Sign Language Association and put together a translator program to help your customers shop and get over that barrier of the shopping experience, that is going to spread like wildfire within their community, because they're all connected on Facebook and other social media platforms, and you are going to get 5 times the impact you would have gotten had you have done something like that 10 years ago.
But Maggie, it's got to be legit though. You've got to be sincere about it, because you also don't. There's that fine line between looking like you're taking advantage of something versus it being organic. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think what's being said right now gets me to the word values. And as an organization, if you don't have values, no matter your size, get them, because that will help you tremendously. That's 3 to 5 words, singular words, that define your business. When you have 5 words that define your business's values, then all of a sudden you can do what Jamie and Josh were just talking about. You identify what is important to you based on the authenticity of your brand. So values are so important. And if you're making a decision, making a decision to partner with an organization, to do in kind, whatever it might be, if you're not making that decision backed by values, it is not authentic and it is not organic, and nobody's going to believe you because you're just doing it haphazardly. So alignment has to be there on that front.
And something I'm going to also say, and this is where I'm so fortunate to be able to go into retailers and see how they do things differently. There's a number of hugely successful members of ours that those connections, those community connections they come up with, or those entities, let's say it's the sign language that they come up with, those come through them engaging their staff, their team, to say, what are the things you care about? What can we support? What can we do? So now you've turned this not just from a promotional aspect of it to really talk about who you are as a business, but you've also given your team the ability to feel like you're listening and you're supporting something that matters to them. So that's a huge chunk of this as well. Before we get into a couple other of the key topics here that we have kind of lined out, I want to get some of the questions because there's some goodies in here that are very specific right now. So when it comes to really where we are right now, we know that things have slowed down. So the question was relating to getting through the summer slowdown, and it just basically said, do we slow down our efforts? How do we adjust, or is this plow through, stick with what you know, and just do it better? What would you suggest? And I'll start with Jamie on this one.
So I always advise, our partners that, moving the bottom line happens off promo. Everybody expects there to be sales going on during the major holidays. We all expect shopping to be up. We want those numbers to continuously be progressing forward, of course, for every holiday. And if you really want to move your bottom line, it's going to happen off promo season. So, we always recommend a steady budget in advertising, whatever that, is for each retailer. And then, yeah, sure, you can bump for additional promos, but making sure that you're not just relying on the sale times to be advertising, right? Getting your message out there, because movers, for example, aren't going to wait until the next sale because they're ready to move into that house and they need furniture now, they need mattresses now, right? So making sure that you've got a consistent advertising budget during those off promo periods and get in front of the people who are in demand currently, that's what's going to help move your bottom line.
Josh, what about your thoughts on that as a retailer who's obviously having to manage that on a daily basis?
Yeah, I can tell you that when times slow down, whether it's seasonal or just in the landscape of the economy, we take an approach of going harder into our advertising. When times are great, it's awesome. The sales almost come organically, and we saw that through a lot of the rolling lockdowns that we had up here in Canada. Huge surges of business post-lockdown when people could get out of their homes again. But now that we're seeing this slowdown, our strategy has been to increase our efforts, spend more on advertising, find more creative ways, and do some of the things that we didn't need to do when business was flowing in, because there's still going to be business. And it's maybe less about capitalizing on the health of the economy, but instead going after market penetration and overall market share.
Maggie, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think take advantage of the downtime. When you have less going on, you have a tendency to be more strategically focused. So our business is in Ohio. It's prime event season. We do a lot of face-to-face experiential. I mentioned inside experience and outside experience. I think outside of your store is a great place to meet your customers where they are. There's tons of events happening. If summer is your slow period, can you partner? We're actually partnering at our state fair, one of the biggest in the country, with a furniture retailer who's coming in. It's a huge advantage to us. It's completely in kind. They're bringing in a ton of furniture. They're not only furnishing these spaces, but they're completely, you talk about interior design, they're designing these spaces, and guess whose name is going to be on them? And guess whose brand is in front of 1 million people over 12 days? Utilize your downtime in a very smart way. And in fact, just like when the economy's in a recession, your marketing should not stop, even though that's what most businesses do. It's just the same. If your business is in a slump, to Josh's point and exactly what Jamie said, you should be doing the reverse. Push it out there, because when people get back to it, you're the brand that they think of.
Can we one of the things that was brought up that it didn't really get to really kind of stick with for a second, I really would like to, is and Josh, you talked about it, about some creative events, if you will, that you do, and now Maggie just talked about this whole concept of at a fair, and I know many companies have done a great job at fairs. I mean, you know, you think that people are there just for the popcorn and the rides, but that's not true. So let's talk a little bit about that. Jamie, what would you suggest are some of those the to-dos, if you will, to develop some creative events or things that can be outside of the typical advertising?
So we have a lot of really creative audiences within Esquire's platform where, one, we're taking either advantage of that social influence. If you do partner with events like a fairgrounds or any marketing community effort in the market, we could use our geo-framing technology to then gather everyone that was exposed to that brand that went to that event and continue to target them with the retailer's name, saying, you know, hey, I mean, we could even customize the message down to, it was great to see you at the fair last week. You know, don't forget we design, you know, rooms. I mean, we can get really, really granular with how we build our audiences and keep your message in front of them, right? Because we know with, you know, all of the information that is thrown at us as consumers, that we have to see that repeat message over and over again for it to start to resonate. Someone could leave that fairgrounds and forget what furniture that was. They could have loved it there and been like, oh, I've got to go check this out. And by the time they get home and they, you know, get over eating the funnel cakes, they've forgotten what retailer that was. So that's a great way to keep your digital advertising, when you can get really specific with your audiences and put your name back in front of them.
You had to say funnel cake. Now, for the rest of this webinar, I'm thinking of one thing: funnel cake. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate that. So Josh, get us into your. We'll get back to the geo-framing in a minute because that's another subject we want to delve into a little bit. But Josh, get us into allow the other retailers watching this to get into your head a little bit. So how did, you know, some of these things that you talked about, how were they developed, or what was the thought pattern? It's not just always a crazy idea on a whiteboard. There's got to be. I know that you guys are very analytical and want to make sure that you're really understanding where you're trying to go with it. Take us inside of that. How's that decision made, and what are the kind of things you look for?
Well, you know, one of the things that this company does very, very effectively, Tepperman's, is completely transparent. We have massive marketing calls that are monthly. Everyone from the entire marketing department, every manager in every location, all gets together and we go through feedback, what worked, what didn't work. We spend hours analyzing how we're going after the business. And, you know, that's where some of the craziest ideas come up, is when you maximize the imagination of as many employees as possible. So engage with your salespeople, engage with your managers in store, engage with your executives in marketing. You know, as an example, we had an idea come out, and this would be a great one for stores to implement, is partnering with your local food truck associations. We have one up here that we have a huge parking lot, like huge because of zoning laws, and you could partner with a local food truck association. And the beauty of that is you're going to get advertising that you didn't have to pay for. So every one of these food trucks is going to post on all their social media accounts, their Twitters, their Insta stories. They're going to post the date. They're going to post where it is. You can usually work out a deal where, you know, if you buy a sofa in our store, you get a free fries at Bob's food truck. So you're going to get free advertising coming from each and every one of these food trucks and all their close followings. And these are the crazy ideas that come from engaging as many of your employees as you can get. And it's really exciting when you get it down to working with all the staff and what they can come up with. And then you really have to plan out, is it going to work? Is this feasible? Can we get it done?
I know that I'll be teased about this by members of my team because they've heard me say this, but also food is fellowship. If you put food out, people mingle. I mean, you know, you want to talk about getting people in the right kind of a mood. I think that's fantastic. And of course, I'm sure one of the food trucks has funnel cake, but that's for another story. Maggie, we have a theme. Maggie, let me ask you the same thing, because not all of these things, and certainly what Josh just talked about, is not like a huge investment, but these creative events that stores can come up with, can you give us a few other ideas or concepts? Because it's, again, trying to keep that interest, trying to get people in the door. You know, this is our, you know, trying to build that customer base.
Yeah, I think that love the food truck concept and maximize imagination. I wrote that down, so I hope everybody else wrote that down because I think you get so many ideas from your people. Small team, big team, sit around and come up with the most stupid idea. See who can come up with the stupidest idea and see how you make it happen. That's where you get your ideas, and those don't cost much. And then you have employees invested in it. There's so many good things on that front. But I think specific ideas aside from food trucks, utilize the last 2 years of the pandemic. We saw outdoor movies. If you've got parking lot space, how do you create these experiences to drive people to your location? You know, inside, outside, right? So movies in the parking lot, how can you take advantage? These are some, you know, come up with some starter questions and then just toss the ball around the room. And it's amazing what your team's going to come up with. Every market's going to be different. Every values of the organization is going to be different, but lean on your folks for some idea generation and spend some time looking at what other brands have done. Event Marketer is an industry-wide association, and I love just going on and watching YouTube clips of like what other brands have done, like crazy takeovers of other spaces. It doesn't have to be your space, but they're going downtown in New York City and taking over these spaces and creating these authentic experiences for 100 people. You're like, 100 people? Yeah, but then it goes viral on social media. So what are other brands doing that are in your industry? But what are brands doing that are not in your industry that you could replicate in an easy way that makes sense to who you are as an organization?
And you know, so many of the questions that we got in were framed with, you know, how can I do this within a budget? And again, everything y'all are talking about, there's so much of this that is just not high dollar. It's just being creative and looking to leverage relationships and situations you currently have. We're halfway through this webinar already, which is awesome. I've got Jamie Gassman here with Esquire Advertising, Maggie Ellison with Event Marketing Strategies, and Josh Miller with Temperaments. Let's jump back for a second because Jamie, you mentioned it. You talked about geo-framing, and I want to just, you know, I'm just going to admit here that, is there a difference between geo-framing and geo-fencing? Are we talking about the same thing, looking at it a little bit differently? Talk a little bit about that, because that's almost like Big Brother scary, what you talked about, but how much we can really kind of know about patterns of people. But give us an idea.
Yeah, so the biggest difference between geofencing and geoframing is the level of granularity. So first off, you know, with geofencing, generally you're talking about a 1/4 mile radius. I think in Facebook, it's about a mile radius. So when you think about that in a point of interest, you know, unless your retail location or, you know, even the fairgrounds is out in the middle of nowhere, you're talking about quite a large area of uncertainty there. So you might end up targeting devices that are not necessarily where you wanted them to be. So with our technology, which we call geo-framing, we're able to get down to a single meter level in accuracy. We hand draw those frames around any point of interest that we're looking at, whether that be a retail location out in the wild or someone's household address, which is how we extracted that statistic that the average person has 5 to 20 visitors in a single month. We actually looked at a sampling size of houses around the United States and then figured out how many guest devices that we saw come to those homes over the course of 30 days. And we could do that around a fairground. We could do that around a, you know, business park, a concert, a food truck rodeo. I mean, we can hand draw those frames anywhere, and then we extract out those devices by the unique identifier of your cell phone, and then we match it back to the household. So that's a lot of words, I know. It's a really fun technology that allows you to get very specific in who you're targeting and make sure that you're putting the right ad in front of the right consumer to try to encourage them to come shop at your store.
And I mean, that's valuable information, but Maggie, I'll let you take this one. I think that there always has to be kind of a warning label on this one, though, because sometimes if you go too deep, or at least you let the consumer know you've gone too deep, there is that backlash. I've heard this happen many times, and people have said that's creepy. You know, it's a little bit too much. So how do you balance that to make sure that you're not seeming like you're watching over somebody's shoulder?
An excellent question. I will tell you though, if it's done effectively, because I'm sure we've all been subject on the opposing side, right? If it's done effectively, you buy. Guilty is charged. If it's done the right way, and the messages on the app.
But define that for people that are trying to glean ideas from this webinar. So what's if you do it the right way? What does that look like?
It's natural content. It's not a big brand logo. It's a person. It's a human that looks like me that I can connect with. That is, because your target market, which hopefully we'll have those defined, but if I'm in a target market with somebody that looks like me, and all of a sudden I'm scrolling through my Instagram feed or Facebook, or I'm driving, whatever that might be. A lot of what Jamie's talking about is digital. And all of a sudden I come across an ad through that feed it's not a big logo, it's not a come to my store, it's just somebody that just is getting in bed and they've got their dog and their dog looks like my dog, and I go, oh, you know what? Oh, it is probably time for me to get a new mattress, maybe. Okay, I'm going to click on this. This is interesting. So it's authentic. It's not a big brand. It's very much real. It's real people.
That's could be, because Jamie, you understand what I'm saying. I mean, we can sometimes get so locked into how cool the technology is that it freaks some people out, some potential customers out.
Sure, and certainly, there are, privacy concerns that we are very careful with. And I think if you put the right ad in front of the right person, just like Maggie said, that leads to buying, right? If I'm scrolling through my social media and I'm someone who has recently been to a furniture retailer, I'm likely to be in the market for furniture. So is it going to bother me to see an ad from other furniture retailers in my market showing me why, they may be a better decision? Probably not. I mean, I know when I scroll through my personal Instagram, I love seeing shoes, jewelry. I've just started taking golf lessons, so I'm getting a lot of golf ads now. So those things are all applicable to me, and I don't mind getting advertised to in those avenues. Now, if I see an ad for diapers, I don't have any children, so I automatically hide that ad. I don't want to see ads that are not relevant to me. If a consumer has given you a reason to believe that they're in the market for your product, they're not going to mind being advertised to.
Okay, fair enough. And by the way, if you're wondering why I keep shifting my eyes here, I'm still having technical issues. So if I pop out, I still got you on audio, but I'm looking down at the phone. I've got all kinds of devices around me here. Real quick, I wanted just to mention, this is pretty cool. We had a comment from one of our viewers that said they actually partnered with a chiropractor and did a seminar on sleep for their mattresses at their store. So that's kind of cool. Now here's a good question. I would like to throw this out to everybody. How do you get a local blogger to be authentic if you are paying them? Who wants to take that one? Any thoughts?
I mean, I'd start by you've got to ensure that, as Maggie had stated, that they align with your values. So we've had some partnerships. At Tepperman's, environmentalism is a huge part of who we are. We've been awarded, Green Economy Canada awards, and our local chambers awarded us with our environmentalism awards. And so when we have specialists or scientists or researchers that do a write-up about our business, they're so passionate towards environmentalism that when they talk about some of our initiatives, it's coming across very authentic. Just going out and paying someone that doesn't buy from you and hasn't aligned with those core values that you have, that's definitely going to be a risk. So you need to do research and not just pick the first guy on a Google search.
You got to vet them. You got to vet them, right? That's the key thing. Okay, good. I just want to clarify that. Go ahead. Anybody else want to jump in? Good.
Well, I was just going to add that, I think it goes back to what Maggie was saying about knowing your core values and being very clear on that, because you do have to remember that each one of those partnerships or sponsorships that you may throw out there, you're a reflection of each other, right? Of the other organization that you partner with, of the blog poster that you partner with, you're both a reflection of each other. So you need to be aligned, like Josh was saying, in those core values. First, you need to have your core values, and then you need to make sure that the partnership is aligned in those core values, because that partnership doesn't end after the event is over, right? You're going to forever have that association of that blog post being out there, those, the event have happened in the past. So you need to make sure that you pick your partners wisely. And I think that starts with knowing who you are as a company and then finding others that fit that same mold and value system.
And I really think that question just comes from really wanting to protect the brand, and I get it. I think that's a big part of it. There's an interesting and I'm going to throw this one out to you guys. And Maggie, I'll actually let you start with this because I think this is interesting. There's a ton of questions where they're talking about reaching a target customer. And since we're talking about increasing this customer base, as I look at this long list of questions, there's two bits of terminology that seemingly contradict. There's a bunch of people saying, how do I broaden my audience? And then a number of others saying, how do I narrow? So we're talking about different types of focus, different. Would you handle that one? Because I think I hear that fairly frequently. That's a struggle as to how you approach that. Am I casting a bigger net, or is my success in building that customer base more about focusing more narrowly?
That's a great question. And so target customer is different than target persona. So develop and identify and create your ideal customer by way of a persona. Give them a name, give them hobbies, make sure that your entire sales team, your entire marketing team, everybody who's everybody on your team believes in that person, an individual, a real human, somebody that you can, that's your customer, right? That's your customer. Give them a persona, give them a lifestyle, give them an income, create that, draw that person. That focus helps you to broaden, because what you may identify as part of that exercise of figuring out who your actual persona is that you may not have one persona, and that's okay. But you need to be crystal clear in who those personas are so that you can identify where they're going to come up with the best marketing strategies.
Okay. Josh, tell us about how, is that something that you have dealt with in your work there, as far as that whole question of are we casting a wider net? Are we focusing more, or doing both? Give a little bit of an idea from your standpoint.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I really see being a little bit of both. So we have our Linda. We know who our prime customer is.
I'm sorry. You said it's Linda. It's Linda.
Linda for us. Yeah.
Okay.
And we've had long calls all about what this customer looks like and how we're going to go after them, and ensuring that we are very focused on the customers that are spending money within our industry, within our city, and being very specific. And with technology these days, in Microsoft Power BI as an example, there's some really cool features that you can start to activate depending on your point of sale system. As an example, we can now track our sales per FSA, or postal code sorting mailing address, and we can actually now see where's our money coming from every part of the city and the markets that we're in. Take that a step further. We can see the categories by postal code area. We can see the average price points within postal code areas. And it will get us to a point where if I'm still using traditional mail out letters, which we do, we've stuck to that core group. Every month we mail out to our preferred customers, and we could get to the point where the items we feature in that ad are actually the average price points of each said category. So this part of the city, they buy $1,100 sofas. This part of the city buys $4,000 leather sofas, and we can start to tailor those ads. So you can get very specific with data and sort of really maximize the investment you're putting into the advertising, so you're not wasting, a $10,000 sofa on the wrong customer, or a $499 sofa on the wrong customer. But at the same time, expand, reach out to new clients. We're really focused on trying to understand the values and priorities of the next generation of family shoppers. Who's that next group that's buying into the housing market, and what do they care about, and what do they need? And so it's important to kind of manage both of those dynamics.
Jamie, I want to give you a word in this as well, because it's a really key foundational sort of a mindset for any size business to think about as they go out there to try to attract more business.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how data oriented Josh's team seems to be. That's definitely our perspective as well. I mean, I would say go as big as you can, as long as you can measure it. That's, I think, where you get into trouble when it comes to advertising, is when you're spending a lot of money and you don't know what's working. Like that is the ultimate struggle in any advertising, and especially digital advertising, because there is so much fraud and, just irrelevant traffic out there that it's hard to measure. And somebody could be using, impressions or click-through rates or things like that seem good, and you have no idea if that's actually driving your business. So as big as you can go in your advertising while actually knowing whether or not it's working, that would be my advice, is just be able to measure it.
You do a great job of dovetailing into something else that I'm looking at on my paper. It's the third time so far as you've done that, Jamie. This is great, because the question was, okay, let's talk a little bit about you can't talk about creative ways to bring the customer base in without talking about ROI, without talking about how do I know. So how do I make sure, Maggie, let me ask you, how do I make sure that I'm getting real, true ROI on the advertising I'm doing, the creative event I've done, anything? How am I going to know, and what's the really the thumbnail of the best ways to make sure you're doing it?
It's a loaded question, and there are some avenues that are much easier to track than others. So what Josh is talking about with direct mail, having a robust customer system, CRM database, if you have a way to link the dots between things to track customer behavior, that's huge. But it is really challenging sometimes to measure ROI. Okay, you put up a billboard and this many people saw it, and your local advertiser is going to set up a quarterly meeting with you to tell you, we think this many people saw it, but what action are you asking them to take? And can you make that action super specific? For example, QR code, bad idea for a billboard, but a QR code, scan, win a prize, come into our store, direct mail, scratch offs. What are you doing that is actually giving you something tangible that you can track? Attendance is great, impressions are great. Wow, this many people saw our advertisement. That's great. How many people did it bring into the store? What is that call to action? And I think having a very clear call to action and differing call to actions will help drive some of those measurables. And it sounds like Josh needs to do a whole session on data, because that sounds very interesting, and I am incredibly intrigued.
That's why we invited him on. It's interesting because one of the things that we've not addressed, we've talked a lot about these different methods, and I think we've done a great job thus far really talking about everything from the referrals and everything from creative events, all these things we've talked about. But one of the things that's on the top of people's mind is attracting the new customer. Now, Josh, while you talked about Linda, I don't know what you view Linda's age, but so many of our businesses that are listening in today are just like, that younger customer, the next generation of buyer, et cetera. Is it different? Do you have to think about different approaches for different demographics? Josh, I will start with you on that one.
Absolutely. And we've invested a lot of time and energy into generational selling and understanding, the way I would sell. My grandfather, 101 years old, still going. The way I would sell a sofa to him is radically different from selling to a first-time home buyer who may be in their mid to late 20s, and really going over the psychology of what that looks like with our salespeople. And one of the advances that we've had to make, especially through COVID, was branching into the world of online chat and starting up a live chat platform. And it is phenomenal, the number of our customers that they don't want a phone call. In fact, you could try calling them and they don't pick up. Your product's in stock. When can we deliver it? They don't answer their phone. You send them a text message, and they come and pick it up within the hour. And so, we've advanced in text blasts. We've invested in a live chat system on our website that also goes to the customer's cell phone, so that as we're continuing the live chat, even if they've left their computer, it's all going to their cell phones as well. And those are advancements that had to be made to ensure that we interact with the different types of customers. And that younger, newer customer coming into the market, it's phenomenal how many of them say, please text me. Well, having the technology to do that, so your employees aren't using their own personal devices to text customers, but you can actually track it and watch it. Managers can go into any of the conversations, analyze the service levels that are being given, provide real feedback and coaching. That has been a whole new element. I now have to spend hours of my week coaching, my 55-year-old salespeople on their texting etiquette and how that impacts the customer and what kind of experience they're drawing from the way you text them and just saying, yeah, I have it, versus expounding on that answer. So yeah, you've really got to consider what technology needs you're going to have to properly resonate with the next generation of customers.
I'm only chuckling because of the fact of the teasing I get from my adult children on some of my texting etiquette, shall we say, or my poor use of emojis. We'll just leave it at that for another day. Jamie, let's talk a little bit about that from your perspective as well. Because there's a lot of interest in how I go about finding ways to really connect with those younger customers.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen over the next 2 years, you're going to see a surgence of OTT. I mean, we've seen a big increase in that over the last couple of years already, and the amount of advertising right now, that is all basically national advertising, because most local retailers don't have the money to come to the table for localized premium OTT placements. So that's going to really change over the next couple years, and there's going to be a big surgence of that. We're working on a brand new program to offer that, and I think that's going to be one of the main ways that we get in front of that younger audience. And to be able to do that at a local level with the one-to-one household match, it's going to be a game changer.
Well, and OTT is not just for the younger either. I mean, you think about how we're just becoming such a streaming non-typical TV watching population that's an area. We had a whole webinar related to OTT, and it was, I mean, I'm telling you, there's a lot to be said there. Maggie, what are your thoughts too about answering these multiple questions I have here about attracting the next generation of buyers?
Yeah, first and foremost, make sure that is your buyer. So is that the target persona that you're trying to go after? Oh. And then you need to be revisiting your target persona, because obviously they're going to evolve, they're going to change, they're going to age out, whatever that might be. So number one, make sure, don't try chasing a younger demographic just because you think that that's the way to go. They're not your target customer. Rewind, reassess. So that's number one, but I'm in agreement. I think digitization, and we saw a ton of it during the pandemic. People had downtime. People weren't doing certain things that they were used to doing. Companies, corporations, digitization, mobile applications. How many have you're a customer, right? You are all customers. How many have you downloaded? How many apps in the last 2 years? How many in the last week? Think about that for a minute. Digitization is the future. So if your target customer is in fact somebody who is into, but it's honestly, it's not even just a younger demographic. It's really kind of across the board with digitization. But really thinking about that.
I gotta say to you, that is one of there's something about what you said that is so kind of like obvious, but we don't hear it very often. And that is, you're saying don't be everything to everybody. Success comes from knowing who Linda is and going after that. I mean, I love that, because I think there's that concern when business gets slow that it's just like, well, I got to try to be casting this wide net. It goes back to that question a little while ago about narrowing the focus, not necessarily just broad brushing everything, because you can find, more customer base in the realm of what you do best. I mean, Josh, would you agree with that? I mean, I don't think you're not trying to be everything to everybody, right?
Definitely not. We really have to understand who our buying customer is. But Techman's, we've been in business for 98 years, and we're excited to get to 100. And we keep saying, and we're building for the next 100. So while I completely agree, you can't go and waste valuable advertising dollars, especially as the economy gets tight. You can't waste that money chasing a customer that isn't going to spend money with you. We also take a much longer view and understand that we need to resonate with that next generation of customers. So we have some social campaigns and our pollinator gardens, and we have school workshops that we're going out and doing with students to get our brand awareness out and to spread education on environmentalism. So we want to invest so they are aware of who we are and what we stand for, knowing that the kids that we're going to see in school, they're not going to be buying from us tomorrow, but we want them to understand that we're a retailer that they want to buy from.
Yeah, planting the seeds early. I think the last we're getting close to the end here, but the last question I'd like to throw out to the three of you is that you know, and I mentioned earlier, you know, our membership base at HFA goes from the mom and pop store on the corner to the largest, you know, retailers in the country. And a couple of people sent notes in and say, you know, how do I beat those top 100 stores effectively? How do I differentiate from them? All those types of things. And I'm just wondering if that is in some ways like this, what we just talked about, the younger generation, like don't go after everything. Would you guys talk a little bit about why just being who you are and being good at it is enough, even for an individual store, no matter if you got a big box down the street or a large retailer next to you? And Maggie, you want to start on that one?
Values. Values is where it begins and where it ends. And once you have those established, I think the rest will come naturally. And I think it's not trying to compete against a big box retailer may not be the right mindset. How do you beat what you did last month? How do you beat what you did last year? And how do you take who you are as an organization and be more than just this brick and mortar or this online location? It's a loaded question, but I think that goes back to that maximize imagination. Get your team around a table and talk about it.
Okay, Jamie?
Yeah, I think it goes back to finding that personality and brand of your unique store location, because you know there's a reason why people will go pay more money for the same groceries at Wegmans than they do at Food Lion, right? There's an experience about that. So if you can give people a reason to come and shop with you, if you can find that unique personality, like Maggie said, those values, then people are going to be willing to go out of their way to shop with you, and you're going to build that brand loyalty to that experience in that store. So localizing your advertising, because I can guarantee you that the big box stores are not localizing their ads. If you can localize your ads and you can put your unique personality in front of the consumers, people want to support locally owned and operated, family owned and operated. They just need to know who you are.
Okay, Josh?
I can't stress enough the importance of placing the highest level of value on that customer that's in your store today. That event-like experience, so that you are remembered. They are going to be what sustains your business, both from their continued purchasing with you for years to come and all of the other family members they're going to bring along with them. You know, one of the things that we always ensure to do, we have a child scholarship fund we award out every month, and every customer just coming into our building, you can fill out a ballot. Your kid has a chance to win $1,000 registered education savings plan. But every customer that comes into our store gets a ballot. It's exciting. It's a draw. It's an event. We're investing in education, and we make them feel so special, whether they buy from us or not. It costs us nothing to do except for the scholarship, which is already part of our charity budget, which goes with our values. But now, for free, just the cost of printing some paper ballots, you can make every customer feel like an event. And then invest in your service recovery. Just the past couple of weeks, I've had 3 customers write letters to the owners talking about, you know, I was never going to buy from Tepperman's again. But the service recovery strategies that we've put into place, you know, it's not about just listening to the customer and what their complaint is, but actually conveying empathy and using that to understand and relate and then partner with them in trying to solve the problem. You know, the customer's not always right. Sometimes they do crazy things, but there is a way that you can come across where they genuinely feel you've cared. And when you can retain one of those customers that wasn't going to buy from you again, you are that much stronger than the competitors who, let's face it, big box corporates, all right, see you later. Like, marketing will bring in another 100 customers next week. I don't care. And those retail managers are stressed, and they're not giving that emotional empathy towards the customers that you have, and you need to value them.
Well, I'll tell you what, this has felt like almost like a master class today because of the 3 of you, and I really appreciate that. And Maggie, I've never seen anybody on a panel take more notes than you have. So if there's that many takeaways for you as a professional, holy smokes, the rest of us are sitting here and I'm not. Yeah, exactly. Everybody's taking those notes. So I just want to first and foremost thank Jamie Gaston with Esquire Advertising, Maggie Ellison with Event Marketing Strategies, and Joshua Miller with Temperaments. You guys have been fantastic. And I want to remind people not only to thank you for joining us, but like I said off the top, the myhfa.org/webinars, where you can find this and all other webinars we've done. It's an amazing library of knowledge. And I also want to thank you guys for your patience today. I apologize for these technical issues and me looking distracted. I've had my system kick me out 3 times during this webinar. I don't know what the deal is, but you've been patient, you've kept going through, and I appreciate it a great deal. So as always, I like to wish everybody good health, great sales, and as far as the HFA team, we look forward to seeing you again next time on our webinars. Thanks so much. I'm Mark Schumacher. We'll see you next time.